Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is Ms. Sofia Basi, and our topic for today is types of text. What is a text? A text is a language unit with a definable communicative function. It can be spoken or written, and its size doesn't matter. Now come to the types of texts. Types of text include narrative text, descriptive text, instructional text, argumentative text, and expository text. Different texts serve different purposes. To tell a story, to describe an entity or event, to provide instructions on how to operate a device, to convince someone of something, to explain how something works. Our society has evolved standard ways of writing a text for a given purpose. For example, to tell a story, we have narrative text. To describe, we have descriptive. To provide instructions, we have instructional text. To convince, we have argumentative text. And to explain, we have expository text. Moving on to narrative text. Narrative text includes any type of writing that relates a series of events and includes both fiction and non-fiction. Fiction includes novels, short stories, and poems. Non-fiction includes memoirs, biographies, and news stories. Both forms tell stories that use imaginative language and express emotion, often through the use of imagery, metaphors, and symbols. Come to parts of narrative texts. Orientation, time and setting of the story. Complication. Complication of story is a quest, an obstacle, or a series of obstacles, a resolution to the complication. And finally, it's an optional part that's a coda, which signals the story is ended. Come to example of narrative text. We all are familiar with the story of Snow White and the Seven Little Dwarfs. The title, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Orientation. Once upon a time, in a place far, far away, there lived a beautiful princess. Complication. A wicked witch, jealous of her beauty, gave the princess a poisoned apple. The princess took a bite from the apple and fell into a deep sleep from which no one could wake her. Resolution. Years later, a handsome prince saw the sleeping princess and kissed her. The princess awoke and they married. Coda. And lived happily ever after. Real narratives go through cycles of this narrative structure. What happened first? What happened next? Etc. Now come to the characteristics of a narrative. Detail what happened and in which order. Contain many actions. For example, she bit the apple. Some verbal, for example, the bad witch said. Mainly in simple past tense. Some past perfect to skip back to the past. For example, she had lost her way. Moving on to descriptive text. Descriptive text contains information describing a scene, person, or object. Descriptive text is a text which says what a person or a thing is like. Its purpose is to describe and reveal a particular person, place, or thing. Come to the examples of descriptive texts. First, we have this example. Revered in times past as a sign of good fortune, this scarab is beautiful. An inch long and an inch wide, this beetle features a deep cobalt blue body, blue and white Australian crystal wings, and golden accents. It would look fabulous on your favorite jacket. Come to another descriptive extract. Thomastown is a suburb in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, 17 kilometers north from Melbourne's central business district. Its local government area is the city of Whittlesea. At the 2006 census, Thomastown had a population of 20,603. Now come to the characteristics of a descriptive text. It uses a relational process. It is big. It has two sides. Descriptive text uses adjectives. He has very large eyes. General structure is a list of attributes or facts. Mostly simple present tense. Universal truths. Moving on to instructional texts. Instructional texts contain information about how to achieve a goal. Give the steps to follow. For example, how to get onto Moodle. Click on www.uam-virtual.es and so on. Characteristics of an instructional text. Number 1, sequence of actions. To clean the device. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 2, use the imperatives. Open the lid. Conditional adjuncts. When the machine has stopped. Number 4, purpose adjuncts. To open the case. Moving on to argumentative texts. Argumentative texts present arguments for or against a case. For example, told by the campfire, or as the plot of bestsellers, ghost stories have long been a popular form of entertainment. But, entertaining as ghost stories are, do ghosts themselves really exist? According to a 2001 Gallup poll, 38% of Americans would say yes, they believe that the spirits of dead people do indeed walk among the living here on earth. Others, however, argue that no solid proof of ghosts' existence has ever been found. They support their argument by pointing out that ghosts seldom appear to those who do not already believe in their existence. Come to typical structure. Argumentative texts present theses, present evidence for, present counterarguments, then defeat counterarguments, present evidence against, offer counterargument, weigh evidence, and reach conclusion. Come to typical structure of argumentative text. 2. This is simple. Present thesis, present evidence for, present evidence against, and sum up the argument. Now come to the characteristics of argumentative text. Usually tries to appear objective and to persuade by the logic of the argument. Thus, emotive words avoided. Low on subjective adjectives. Use of connectors to reveal the structure of the argument. Secondly, thus, as evidence of this, however, etc. Reference to authorities. Scientists believe. Moving on to expository texts. Texts that explain some natural or socio-cultural phenomena. Provide factual information rather than try to convince. There is no argument. can include a variety of texts, such as newspaper articles and reports, textbooks, and scientific and academic essays, which present factual information. Come to example of expository text. Why does it rain? Warm air turns the water from rivers, lakes, and oceans into water vapor that rises into the air. That water vapor forms clouds, which contain small drops of water or ice crystals depending on how high the cloud is and how cold it is. As clouds rise higher and higher, the air gets colder and colder. When the water vapor in the cloud becomes too heavy, it falls back to the ground as rain or snow. Come to generic structure. Number 1, a general statement to position the reader. Number 2, a sequenced explanation of why or how something occurs. Characteristics. Focus on generic participants, temporal and casual circumstances and conjunctions, use of simple present tense. So, that is all for types of texts. Thank you very much and Allah Hafiz.